Welcome to the Great Man Within podcast. Every episode is designed to help you discover and live the great man within you. Got a really interesting email from one of our longtime listeners, and we're going to call him Rick, because that's what Brian and I do on the show. When we are protecting someone's confidentiality, the stand-in nickname is always Rick. Don't ask me why. Brian was the one who came up with that. Maybe he has a reason. I have no idea why. Rick sent an email with a couple of questions that I thought were relevant for the rest of our audience. So I want to read these different parts to you about Rick's struggles with drifting, wanting to feel a deeper sense of passion and purpose in his life, but not knowing how to get at it. So I'll read a little bit at a time here, and then we will unpack what my guidance to Rick would be. So, Dominic, I come to you today to ask for help. Currently, I feel I'm in a drift state. To me, it seems to be the same thing every day. Wake up, shower, meditate, read, go to work, come home, help the wife with the kids, eat, go on a walk, put the kids to bed, work out, rinse, and repeat. Obviously, this is a problem. I'd already read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, but took your advice about 6 months ago, and I read Outwitting the Devil. I will say I'm a fan of Napoleon's work. I think the problem I have right now, though, is I do not know how to get out of this state. So first and foremost, Rick, take it easy on yourself, brother. There's a lot of good in what you are doing, right? Like there's a routine here that for some period of time served a purpose for you, right? There's meditation, you're reading, presumably books like Napoleon Hill or something else that is mind expanding, heart expanding, growth expanding. And you're taking time with the kids, the wife, doing your work, you're working out. There's a lot of good here to recognize in yourself. Now, I also know what it's like for routines to become mundane and boring, to feel like it's like Groundhog's Day. Now, one of the things I haven't revealed about Rick yet here, he reveals this in the next part. He's a mechanical engineer as well. That's important because I want to introduce you a concept that you're going to be hearing more about in coming episodes regarding masculine and feminine energies. I'm going to give you a precursor here as to what those energies are. I'm going to help use that to diagnose a little bit of what's going on with Rick here. And you're going to hear much deeper dives in our next 2 episodes that we're releasing on the following 2 Mondays. So all of us have access to the spectrum of masculine and feminine energies. If you think about like the yin and the yang, right? So masculine energies, we all have this inside of ourselves. Masculine energies are things like structure, discipline, linear, action, doing. Feminine energies are things like intuition, feeling, spontaneity, joy, mystery, flow. To give you an analogy, if you think about in nature, a riverbed, when it's empty, that is structure, that's masculine. But it's kind of depressing on its own, right? Just an empty riverbed with no water flowing through it is boring, it's depressing. The water flowing through it is feminine energy. It's flow. It's ever moving. Now, water without a riverbed could be disastrous. It could be a flood. It could cause water damage. The two working together in harmony can create some beautiful things. You get too far out of balance in one energy versus the other, and then things can be chaotic or boring. What I find is when men are way too much in their masculine and energy of things, structure, doing, tasks, linear, life can get boring, dry, mundane, gray. Feminine energy is often where there's curiosity, where there's playfulness, where there's intrigue, where there's discovery, where there's a lot more newness. And when I see high-achieving guys who constantly set goals, and you talk about a very masculine-oriented job, when you talk about engineering, mechanical engineering, and not knowing necessarily all of the traits and components of mechanical engineering, but there is a science to it, right? There's a if X, then Y in many parts of engineering jobs. In many engineering jobs, there's math. Math is very masculine oriented. Now, when we get stuck in this pattern of doing everything mechanically, doing everything the same way we always have, having a structure, having a routine, having a habit, it can get lifeless. So Rick, my first piece of guidance to you, man, especially with your routine, is switch it up. You're not going to have different kinds of days if you're waking up every day doing shower, meditation, reading the same way you always have, going to work the same way you always have. When you come home, eating the same kind of stuff, working out the same kind of way. If your days, the bookends of your day, let's say the morning and the evenings, if those are always the same, then chances are you're going to feel like a bit like Bill Murray in Groundhog's Day. Like everything is going to feel the same. If you want to feel something different, you got to shake up some stuff. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like for you, but I can tell you for sure in my life, my routines, which have given me such essential structure, right? Like masculine energy, routines, and structure give me clarity and focus and discipline. It allows me to know like what the most important things are on a given day. It keeps me centered and grounded when the structure is needed. But over the course of time, I also want to break free from that prison. Do you know what I mean? Like I think about my childhood when I was a good Catholic boy going to Catholic school. I obeyed all the rules and I received rewards for doing that. But there was also this deep part of me that was just like, get me out. Like, let me make my own choices. Let me discover. Let me break rules, right? There's always that part of us that wants to rebel against structure, against routine, because what we're seeking is growth. We're seeking something new. We're seeking life. And these two things working together can create a really empowering life. My morning routines, first when I didn't have one, I think you've heard me say on the show, it used to be like all throughout my 20s, I'd wake up, it would be SportsCenter, Frosted Flakes, poop in a shower, off to work. That was like how it rolled for me. And it worked for a while until it didn't. It was just kind of like, I feel like I'm kind of stuck. Well, I decided to actually implement a morning routine that allowed me to feel powerful, clear, and focused on the most important things of the day. And it really kind of started with working out in the morning, some meditation and reading. And those things served me really well. After a while, that felt rote. That felt boring and mundane. So I just needed to shake it up. And sometimes, like I'll flip things completely on its head. Just to break completely free, I'll be like, I don't watch TV in the morning, but I'll watch my favorite show today before I go to work. And I'll watch an episode of Lost or an episode of The Wire. Sometimes I'll eat dinner for breakfast for dinner. I'm throwing things completely out of whack just to scramble my system because it introduces novelty into my life. Some of the experiments work, some of them don't. But at least I've got feedback from trying something different. And then over the course of time, I've gotten really good at recognizing when my routines are getting mundane and I can change them much more quickly without running them, like letting them run their course way too far to the point where I'm just like disgusted by them or it's like no longer providing value. So Rick, my idea to you, my encouragement to you is shift up your routines. I know that you are a part of another mastermind because you've shared that with me in the past. Go ask a bunch of guys for the 5 to 10 most creative ideas that you can do in the morning to shake things up. They may have nothing to do with personal development. You just may need some joy and play in your life. You know, like for me, I'm a baseball guy. I love my baseball cards. Like I would go to a store, maybe buy a box of baseball cards and open them like throughout the course of the week each morning just to see what cards I get to attach me back to my childhood. There's so many ways to get creative. So Rick, have some fun with this. It sounds like you could use some more joy, some more passion, some more fun in your life. And you have to start getting curious around what are the things that can light that up in your life. Final point on this. A lot of us in our efforts to be successful, in our efforts to fulfill our obligations to our family, our spouses, our kids, we squeeze a lot of the excitement and joy out of our lives. And we have to get on that path back. And sometimes we may not know exactly what that is, but just get curious, experiment and play. And over the course of time, you'll get pretty damn good at the things that light you up. And when you get good at the things that light you up, then it will get to this next part of your question, which is around passion and purpose. So here's Rick again. Another thing I've been thinking about is my life's passion. I'm a mechanical engineer and I have a great job, but I'm not 100% sure if that is what my passion is. Yeah, it's a good job and I do not hate it, but I'm not doing backflips in the morning to go to work. I've moved around a few times with my company and I am in a location and chemical plant that is not ideal. Do you have any recommendations or resources on how to find my life's passion? So again, man, I would say welcome to the group, right? There's many of our listeners, many of the men who come to listen to this podcast, who do the inner work with me in person. Many of them have a good job. It's sturdy, it's stable, it's financially rewarding, it provides opportunities, but also there's this growing sense of dis-ease and restlessness around why doesn't it feel better? So there's a few resources that I'll share with you. I'm going to be reading you some passages from Deida's The Way of the Superior Man. That's a book that you definitely need to read if you haven't, because there's the first half of the book is really centered a lot around purpose. Another book I'll recommend is my own, which is called Design Your Future, 3 Steps to Stop Drifting and Start Living. And there's another book that I haven't yet read, but it's gotten great reviews. It's a #1 New York Times best-selling book called Design Your Life. Or Designing Your Life, one of those two, Design Your Life or Designing Your Life. And it takes a design-based approach to giving you processes to actually design a life that you will love. So there's some really good resources. Maybe just go on Amazon, check out the 3 books, see which one calls to you first, and pick it. Don't necessarily buy all 3. Actually read the descriptions on all 3 first and see which one actually feels most exciting to you, because feeling is cultivating more of that feminine energy part of things. In The Way of the Superior Man, Deida says, "It's easy to feel disappointed by life. Success is never as fulfilling as you think it's going to be. But there's a reason for this. Successfully completing a lesser purpose doesn't feel very good for very long, because it is simply preparation for advancing toward a greater embodiment of your deeper purpose. Each purpose, each mission is meant to be fully lived to the point where it becomes empty, boring, and useless. Then it should be discarded. This is a sign of growth, but you may mistake it for a sign of failure." Now, I talked about this in last Friday's episode, why you may feel lazy and unmotivated after success. And in some cases, it's not necessarily because you've made wrong decisions, but it's because you've already fulfilled the purpose of whatever work you're doing right now. There might have been a time, Rick, when becoming a mechanical engineer was the thing that lit you up most in this world. Maybe there was a time when you were building stability and financial resources for your family to make sure that they were cared for. That was at the center of your world. And you've lived that purpose now. You've done that. Mission complete. And there's this part of you that's ready for the next challenge. But the fear of starting over, the fear of leaving this all behind, the fear of could I ever replace this, the fear of maybe having to take a step back, these are all things that we're not actually willing to confront without a lot of fear, without a lot of resistance. Maybe we don't have the tools to confront that, or to actually face the fears of, or to envision a future where maybe you're making a bigger move. One of the things that I see when men end up in this position is that we kind of go to the extreme and say, oh, well, if I want to change, if I realize mechanical engineering is not my life purpose, then my next action has to be leaving it all behind and creating chaos in my life and stress in my family's life and my own life. There's an infinite number of other options available to you to play with in between, to bridge those gaps that may seem really far apart between where you are now and then completely revolutionizing your life and changing everything. You don't need to do that. I didn't even do that. Once at my 13-year mark of my 15-year corporate career, 13 years in, my purpose was complete. It was done in that job, in that world where for a period of time, it was the only thing I wanted to do. But when I realized it was over, I decided to take 2 years to really figure out what my next step was going to be. I knew I was going to leave, but I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. And that's how I eventually figured out what I'm doing today is my purpose in life, until this gets complete, until this gets dissolved and the next thing comes up. Another chapter from Deida's book, The Way of the Superior Man, he says, if you don't know your purpose, you need to discover it now. He says, if you don't know your deepest desire, then you can't align your life to it. Everything in your life is disassociated from your core. You go to work, but since it's not connected to your deeper purpose, it is just a job, a way to earn money. You go through your daily round with your family and friends, but each moment is just another in a long string of moments going nowhere, not inherently profound. Right? That sounds like the first part of your message Rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And you're going to have to tap into some courage, my friend, around recognizing whether or not you've fulfilled your purpose in its entirety as it stands today. And maybe there is a bigger path forward that has nothing to do with the life you've created for yourself right now. Have the courage to sit in stillness and meditation and contemplate that question. Have the courage to write that out. Have the courage to have the conversation with your wife about that at the proper time. It's also not the only thing that's available to you. You can also play this game of getting really curious about what will light you up. You don't need to solve the end-all be-all of what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life from where you're sitting right now. This is where too many guys go wrong. When you are not in a lit-up state in your life, you're trying to figure out what that end game is. It's very hard to channel and to come up with your eureka idea when you are in a place where you feel bored. Actually, the most powerful thing you can do is to get into a state of momentum on a daily basis where you feel just a little bit more lit up by your life. This goes back to your first question, my friend. Feel a little bit more lit up by your life every single day. Bring a spark to it. Bring a joy. Bring a mystery. Bring something new. Bring something novel. Screw up. Succeed in different ways than you have before. When you get into that momentum and your game becomes to just continue building that momentum, what you will start to naturally find is new doors will open that will give you the clue to what purpose could look like for you, to where your greatest gifts may be, what might give you that energy that if you were to engage in that thing for the entire day, you would feel coming home, you wouldn't feel exhausted or bored. You'd feel lit up and inspired, and everyone around you would feel it. But you need to have the courage. You need to be willing to step forward and make some changes, shake up your life. And since you have a family, and for the men who don't have families who are listening to this, you can tap on like your friends and other trusted confidants. And Rick, since you have a family, then enroll your family in this. Enroll your kids, enroll your wife in asking the questions about how can I shake things up? How can life become a little bit more fun? When do you remember me when I was at my lightest? When do you remember me when I was my best self? When do you remember me when I was happiest or most joyful? Because maybe they were able to see you in those moments where you forgot about them. And maybe they'll be able to point you in the direction that will light you up once again. So Rick, thank you for the questions. And for the rest of you guys who are listening, right? Drift, disconnection from passion, disconnection from purpose. These are all states of being, temporary, that we will all encounter throughout the course of our lives. Recognizing when they're happening, like Rick did, and then seeking, and then jumping out and seeking for help, reaching out and seeking help, are great ways for you to get new ideas. And I would encourage you, Rick, not to stop with me or just one person. Continue asking those same questions to others. Same thing that goes for the rest of you guys. Ask numbers of people in your life. Ask the trusted men in your life. If you don't have them, well, this is a great opportunity for you to go dig deeper. Bring your male relationships deeper by asking them these deeper questions. Make this a game and recognize that the feeling of purpose may be something that's going to take some effort, some work before you crack it open and you can feel, oh man, I'm on to something. Because I can tell you, fellas, that when you get to that place, when you crack open that thing, it's a one-way door. When you go through it and you feel that sensation that guides the rest of your life, that feels a deep, like a strong magnetism, that is your core. And the deeper and deeper that you drill, that's work I'm doing right now. The deeper I drill to my core, the more exciting life becomes. The more magnetic I feel I become. The more of you have listened as a result of me coming closer and closer to that core. So again, the 3 books that I recommended were Deida's The Way of the Superior Man, which is a spiritual guide to mastering the challenges of women, work, and sexual desire. My book, Design Your Future, and Design Your Life. I'll link all 3 of these in the show notes. Rick, thank you again for the question. And gentlemen, keep on discovering and living the great man within you.